My name is Mike Kimbrough. I'm the Managing Director for Solver here in Asia Pacific. And today I will be giving you an overview of the Solver BI360 product. I'm going to focus on reporting specifically around the financial side of reporting, but BI360 can also do, really anything that you can dream up from a reporting perspective, operational reports, manufacturing, what have you. I'll also focus on consolidations. I'll show you a few examples of the types of reports that we can do for consolidations, things like trees, or maybe separating out companies or cost centers into columns or rows, or however you might want to be able to report across your organization. And then I'll highlight some ways that you can do board reporting as well. That seems to be, those tend to be the three most common areas that people like to focus on with respect to BI360. I'll also spend a few minutes, do a high-level overview of budgeting. Budgeting works very similar to the way that reporting does, and you'll see that as I go into the budgeting module today. I'm going to spend 15 minutes or so, kind of just show you how you would contribute to a budget, talk to you a little bit about the workflow process, and so you can see how that workflow is managed. And then I'll wrap up today's session with Power BI. I'm going to show you how we make the data available inside of the BI360 data warehouse, make that data available for Power BI. It's not just Power BI. We can actually make that all the data that's available in the BI360 data warehouse available for really any analytics tool. But we have a kind of a special focus on Power BI, and that will continue to increase as the product evolves. So with that, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes and talk with you about Solver, so you know who we are. I know that the MicroChannel team, you can reach out to them. They'll be happy to provide this for you, this PowerPoint for you. Really, the purpose is just spend a couple of minutes because we've got a lot to show in a very short period of time. But I know everybody probably, if you haven't heard about Solver, you probably want to know who Solver is and a little bit about BI360. So BI360 is the third product that we've developed over our 22-year history. The first product we built was a product called Enterprise Reporting that was eventually acquired by Microsoft, and it ran for a total of about 13 years. The second product we built was a product called XLR, or Excel Reporting, and that was our first Excel add-in. And that product was acquired by SAP and was put to use for their SAP B1 product. So if there's any folks out there that have used the B1 product for any period of time, you'll probably remember that product. BI360 is the next generation. It's by far the most successful product that we've ever built in terms of the depth and breadth of the product, as well as the number of customers that we've acquired over the short lifespan of the BI360 product. And in that time, we've also won a number of awards, including being on the Gartner's Magic Quadrant 3 years running. And you can, again, reach out to your account exec and they can provide you more details around BI360. So we talk a little bit about Gartner, and for those of you that don't know, Gartner is their industry analysts. We pay them to do testing on our product and come back and provide feedback and compare us to other products in the industry. That's fantastic, but that's a view from an analyst. So what I always encourage people to do, and you can go out and actually look at the competition as well, is to go out and visit G2 Crowd. They're really an up-and-coming source for end users or customers to go out and review products. And what I like best about this is they basically solicit our entire customer base for feedback. So you can see detailed information and responses from our customers on how they feel about the BI360 product, what it's like working with our partner channel, and what it's like working with Solver. So a great resource for everyone. The purpose of me bringing up a customer slide really is just to show you kind of a quick snapshot of the types of customers that we have. But I will tell you that we have customers across every industry that you can imagine. We don't work better in one industry versus another. We really can work the same across any industry. For us, it's really about two things, and that's really what I'm going to focus on today. It's about, can we access all the data across your organization? And then do we have a tool that's capable of, performing, and basically whatever you dream up and design, can we build it with that tool? And again, that's going to be my focus today in the product demonstration. So a lot of acronyms going on these days. So CPM, people want to know really what that means, corporate performance management. If you haven't heard that term, it's really advanced reporting and budgeting. So here you can see the major components within BI360. So we have a reporting tool, very advanced reporting tool, budgeting tool. We have a pre-built data warehouse. And by the way, everything here is built off of the Microsoft stack of technology. So it's a SQL data warehouse, and that allows you to bring in all of the data across your organization. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then we also have, again, the API that allows us to take that data out into dashboard tools, specifically with a focus on Power BI. So, and then a group of add-ons that help increase the capabilities of BI360. So how does that all come together? How does it all work? This is a very simplistic slide, but it's designed to be that way, but it's also a very powerful slide, and helping everyone understand as I go through the demonstration today exactly how those different parts integrate. So I know a lot of you today are probably running on the Sage or the Microsoft or the SAP products. So for us, it doesn't really matter what ERP it is. We have pre-built connectors for the majority of those ERPs. So your ERP has a direct connection. It's a wizard-driven connection. We say we want to bring in this, this data into our data warehouse, and that data will then reside into the BI360 data warehouse. But the good news is it's not just your ERP data. It can be any data on any platform across your organization. So you have a custom database, you have a cloud, solution, an on-premise solution. It really doesn't matter to us. We'll be able to bring this in because we have a group of pre-built connectors as well as some generic connectors that are very wizard-driven that will allow you to bring that data in. Once you set that data up one time, it will refresh at whatever frequency that you want. So that BI360 data warehouse becomes a very integral part of the solution. The other thing that this data warehouse does is it does all the intercompany eliminations. So it's got rules to automatically process that. It also has the ability to create an unlimited number of trees. So if you think about things like products or projects or companies and you want to create an unlimited number of hierarchical tree structures, you can do that within BI360 as well. And as soon as you do that, all of that data is available for reporting. All of that data is available for budgeting, an unlimited number of versions for budgeting and forecasting. So as soon as you contribute to a budget, guess what? It's storing back to that data warehouse. It's immediately available for reporting, and then it's also immediately available for any type of visual analytics with Power BI. So I'm not going to go through this, but basically what you can see later is just kind of some of the common problems that people have when they're trying to work in an Excel or a manual environment versus BI360. And again, you can look at this slideshow later. So we're going to get right into the product demonstration. So I'm inside of BI360. I'm in the home page. So this is a great way for you to launch a support ticket, or if you want to go out and understand additional information, go into our forum. You can launch it from the homepage. Every user will have the homepage, and you can see on the left-hand side that I've got a lot of different modules that I'm a super user, but every user will have this homepage. You can also launch the Solver Academy. This is a subscription-based e-learning environment, so you can go and watch all the videos and go through the tests and tutorials. It's a really great asset for anybody that wants to learn BI360. And also, we've kind of deactivated getting data and news. This is a demo environment, but you can also broadcast news across the organization as well for your users. So it's the budget season, the quarterly reports have now been released, et cetera, et cetera. So with that introduction, let's get into the product, because everything really starts with report writing. You're looking at all of my reports. If I were to scroll down, you can see I literally have hundreds of reports. Within this environment, I can search my reports. So I can say, show me all of my P&Ls, right? So I can go through and start to search. So now I see all of the P&Ls that I have. And this is a really good example to talk about BI360 is because I can build one type of report, type being a P&L, and I can build it 1,000 different ways, right? I'm really only limited by my imagination and my skills within the tool. And most of those skills are Excel, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. I can also search within categories. So I've already said, show me all the P&L reports, but show me all those that are specific to consolidations, or show me all those that are specific to Mike's favorites, right? So I have a favorite folder. If I were just to remove that, you would now see all the reports that are in Mike's favorite folder, right? So really flexible. I can create new categories on the fly. This is very user-friendly and very user-driven. So if I were to go and search P&L, for example, and we're going to use P&L as an example today, but the same philosophy about P&Ls will go across any kind of report that I build. So I'll just run this first report. So I can select this report. And there's lots of things I can do before I ever run it. I can duplicate the report with 2 simple clicks. I can do a lot of different things, but I've actually now run the report. And the most important thing that I'm going to tell you about this report, I'm in a 100% web-driven environment. I'm actually accessing a server in the US, not our Australian server, but in the US, so you can see the types of performance that we get. This report was built in Excel. So it's the only thing that we do outside of the web portal is build reports and budget templates in Excel. So we use Excel for what it's really good at: format, formulation, design. Everybody knows the tool. So the learning curve is really slight, okay? So within this report, you'll notice that it looks very similar to what you would build in Excel. I've got traffic lights, I've got in-cell graphs, I have expansion groups, so I can expand, and here's an Excel graph. I've also got some expansion categories at the department level, so I can expand those. I can do a lot of different things just as a user within this environment, including drilling down into the data. So if I said I want to drill into the data, I have 2 defaults here already. I can drill in and look at the GL detail, and there's all of the detail that makes up that transaction within the P&L, so for product revenue. If I wanted to, I could drill all the way back to the source document. So let's say I was looking at operating expenses. I could drill all the way back and look at a vendor invoice without ever having to go into the ERP. So does the form look the same? No. But is the data the same? Who the vendor was, what we purchased, quantities, amounts, descriptions, all of that stuff would be available. So being able to drill down is it's definable by the person that builds the report, right? So are parameters. So up here you can see I have 3 parameters. These are defined by the person that builds the report. So I'm a super user, I build reports. So I said I'd like to be able to filter by entity, and in here you can see that I can quickly filter and select additional entities on the fly and be able to run reports. And we'll cover that a little bit more later. I can also choose the period that I want, and I also can choose the budget scenario. So what you'll notice in column I here is that I have a budget month. I can simply go and come in here and say, hey, I'd like to change this to a forecast, right? So if I were to change that to a forecast, what it would do is it would change the title and say forecast month, and then would bring back forecast data. If I had multiple versions of a budget or a forecast, I would have version up here as a parameter as well. So I could say, show me for the US company for this period, forecast number 3, and instantly that data will be inside of my report, okay? So also within these reports, I can create comments. So if I wanted to comment on any report, I can select a number of templates that I can build. And where do you build them? They're all Excel templates. So with this template, I can just say apply. And you can see I probably spent 5 minutes building this template. But I could build a template for general comments, management comments, director comments, whatever it is that I want to do. And I can have an unlimited number of these comments, and I can just enter my comments here, right? So once I do that, I could just say save, and those comments will now be associated with that report for the life of that report. So anytime I run this report for the US, for this period, for this budget scenario, I'm going to see those comments. And then I can pop right back into the report. Now, because we're a budgeting solution, I could also have just added a comment field in here and said, hey, for the line item, I'd just like to add a comment field, right? Because a budgeting solution allows you to contribute to a field or to a budget, right? Same thing with reporting. So it's kind of a hybrid. So other things I can do, I can share this report with everyone. I can decide, who do I want to share this with on the fly, and easily share that with different users across the organization. And I can export it to Excel. It's going to do all the format formulation for me. I'm 2 clicks away to export it to Excel or PDF or, really one of a number of different formats. But one of the coolest things about the BI360 is our ability to edit reports. So let's just say you didn't like something here, and I've already noticed that it says budget MTH here, and it says budget or actual month and actual month last year. And I want to kind of make that consistent. So if I didn't want to copy the report, I wanted to make a change to an existing report. Very simple. I just say, let's edit that report. And what that's going to do now is it's going to open up Excel for me. So this is where our Excel add-in is. So here you see it's opening up the BI360 Designer. It's also loading all of my data over here on the left-hand side. So you notice, I'll close my layout editor here. You notice that it's a blank template, but I have all of my data across my organization. So GL, AR, AP, that's all coming from my ERP, our group of ERPs. Maybe I've got multiple different ERPs, and I've mapped my chart of accounts, so I have all of that data in here. But maybe I've got, well, here's an example. Google Analytics is an external product, has nothing to do with my ERP. Or maybe I have a third-party projects or payroll system. And I can pull data from any one of these modules into the same report. So in my general ledger, just really quickly here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time building a report, but just so you see, here's my account. All I did was drag in my account. Then I filtered what accounts I wanted. I can use account groupings, so predetermined. R1 is all my revenue. R2 is, my revenue minus my service revenue. I can define all of that information. And where did I get the description of my accounts? Just an attribute. So there's description. I pulled the account description in. And then all of these filtered categories in the columns, they're all predefined. I could do a date range, but I could pull in, actual month last year, and it will filter all the columns. Once I've done that, I can just copy this row, come down a few rows later, paste it, and select a different group of accounts for cost of goods sold. I can filter the data for this entire report in less than 10 minutes. So there's no data in here, right? It's going to go back into Deep BI360 and then pull that data from those categories that I've filtered in here from the data warehouse. But the rest of this report is all Excel skills. All this graph and everything is Excel skills. So let's just make a quick change. I'll leave the actual month. Let's just say I didn't like the color of this report. Let's do this, whatever. Let's just put it in here. And I want to get rid of the MONTH in these things. I just want to be consistent here. Right, so I've made my change. I could run and review the report to make sure it looks the way I want, but these are simple changes, right? So all I have to do now is just say save. I'm not saving this to my desktop or to a folder. I could if I wanted to, but there's no need because that report just went back up into the BI360 cloud, right? So here I say, okay. And I can really just close out Excel right now. I don't need Excel for anything else. It's going to tell me, hey, you've got some report changes. I say, refresh that report for me. It's going to force me to rerun it because I've made a change. And there's the report. So here you can see I changed the color, but I changed the description of it. Again, then I can publish it out and make sure that it's available for all those people that had it before that I now want them to have the change. And another really cool thing that I can do with my reporting is I can archive these reports. So if I say send to archive, as soon as I do that, you can see I've already done it before. I'm going to overwrite it. It's going to leave that section green right there, so I know I've archived it. Well, you can see archive is a type of user. This is a type of user where you would send it to a user and they wouldn't be able to change the parameters. So they'd be able to consume the reports that you've sent them, but they wouldn't be able to change the parameters. They could do everything else the same, drill down, do all the same stuff. What I also like about archive is I can archive to myself. And if I were to go into archive reporting really quickly, you'll see that there's that report that I've archived, but what's really cool about this is it gives it a date and time stamp. So I know exactly when it hasn't even, it's there. Trust me, if I go a little further over the right, I've got it blown up, but it gives me a date and time stamp of the report. And then I could go in and filter the report. So while I'm in here, I'm going to show you a couple of really cool things about the archive type of user. So one of the first things you'll notice is I have the same report in here, the R136, but I have different entities, US and Singapore. So all I have to do here is click both of these reports and say open. So what it's going to do is it's now going to give me those reports side by side. And if I need a little bit more space, I can expand it. But I can go through and drill into these reports. I can go in and look at revenue and say, show me the general ledger. Probably not a lot of transactions in this one. Yeah, just one transaction. But I can compare this report to the exact same report for a different company side by side. So also a very cool feature within inside of BI360. So I can go right back into my playlists or into my archive, and I can go into my playlist. I can run any number of reports in there, but I can also select reports. So we talked about showing board reports. So here's all the reports that's made up in this playlist. I can select any number of them to view them, or I could simply say show playlist. Here I am in archive, and I have the board presentation. I can say show playlist. And what that's going to do is, you know, you've probably done some reports before where you put them out to PowerPoint or Word. This is a great way to distribute reports. So you can see that I have multiple pop-ups as I move my cursor down here. So here I went into the executive briefing card. So I'm going to see information about the organization. So as an executive, I might want to be able to see, you know, certain reports, and you can define what reports are in these playlists. So also I could go into, you know, I can have any number of them here, but I can go into a report that's one of my favorites. And this is actually one report that I'm pulling up, but it's actually made up of several reports. You can see all these reports are in this report book. So it expands to be even greater information than just the 4 reports that you see here. So what's really cool about this report is this is a narrative report. So the narrative is populated based on the results that are returned for the parameters. So the US company at whatever period it was, it's going to populate data based on the results. So the United States sees great improvement. Those are all drivers that were built in, very similar to, you know, assumptions or drivers in budgeting that you would have. And it's now coming back and saying the profitability this month was great. It's determined all that language based on predefined parameters. So really cool report. So I could run this for a different period, and I could get a completely different narrative without ever having to change any text. It also, I have a P&L variance in here, and you can see a different type of P&L variance than what you've seen before. I've got multiple years of actuals. I can also expand on those actuals to see the individual periods. I could put in sales information, my top customers, you know, my top vendors, you know, whatever it might be, any kind of information that I might want to be able to put into a report, okay? So really cool with respect to archive reporting. So the last little bit that I'm going to cover on, you know, reporting will be really about the consolidation side. And one other thing before I get into consolidations too, is I'm showing you Mike's favorites. You'll notice how the tab up here at the top of this report is a different color. That's indicating that it's a report book. So if I ever select a report like I just did here, you'll notice as I select that report that this whole menu pops up. I can select and add any report to a report package. So I could add this report into the ZR10 package, so if I wanted to. So this is a consolidation. By the way, I'm going to expand the screen, sorry there. This is a consolidation of different reports that are all on separate tabs, right? So I could go through and look at different information in this report book, and I can view that data however I want to, right? So again, Excel graphs and everything else as well. So the last part of reporting I'm going to talk about will be consolidations. So I just want to show you a couple of different ways that you can do consolidations or consolidated reporting. I won't get into how the elimination process works, and you can do that either automatically eliminate all the intercompany transactions, or you can do it manually through a template you design, or you can do both. So all the adjustments you could do manually if you like as well. So within this this report, you can see that I have the ability to select entity. Now you've seen this before, and now what you see differently is that you see a tree. It's not an individual entity. I can select a tree. So here you can see it's run on the Asia region. And what it's doing now is I've got two companies within my Asia region, so I've got 3 tabs on this report. So this is a multiple tab tree report. So what it's doing is it's consolidating these 2 entities into one tab, right? So that's my consolidated view of the Asia region, but I can also just go into the individual regions, right? To be able to see, you know, what does Singapore look like? If I just wanted to run this report for any one entity like Australia, I could just select Australia and say run it, and I'll get only Australia. Now, I built this report, and I only built one report, but I could run it, you know, hundreds of different ways across all of my companies. So here I'm just seeing the Australia report, but I also have, this is based on geography, but I also have a tree based on, I mean, you can see I've got lots of trees, but trees based on lines of business. So, you know, show me my manufacturing companies versus my distribution companies, right? I have all of this information. I can, any kind of tree that I want to design, where I have a hierarchical tree structure, I'll be able to build that report, okay? So that's one way of doing the consolidated reporting. Another way to be able to do that is I'll show you a consolidating net income report. And what you see here is that I have all of my entities across the report, right? So if I were just to say, show me Australia and the US, you're going to notice that I've only got 2 entities here, right? So what I just did there, by the way, is what we call quick parameters. So I can go in and select the parameters here, but if I previously run the report for a group of companies, I can just always go back, or a different period, I could always go back to quick parameters and select that. So here, I built the report, I added 1 column for a company, it will dynamically expand. So if I go and say, show me all of my companies, it'll automatic, I don't even need to run it, it will dynamically expand and show me all of my companies. So here I have all of my companies in different columns. These companies could be in different currencies. They could consolidate in a different currency. And you can also see that I haven't run my elimination process yet. And that's why there's no balance in there, no balances in there, okay? So one other thing that we can show you really quickly would be just a little bit more expanded version of that. So here I can still pick from a tree, but what it's doing now is it's going across the columns. So it's exactly kind of what you saw before. Without multiple tabs, it's expanding the companies across a column, but it's now within a tree, right? A little bit more detail there. And you can see if I went in and just select this individual company, it does that as well. Just a different way to do it. So it doesn't matter to us whether you want your companies across columns, you want your companies across the row. We'll be able to do all of that for you, okay? So I could go on and on about reporting, but since we had a little bit of a delay, I'm going to just go into budgeting really quickly because I don't want to skip this because I know a lot of people are looking for this. So you'll notice I have budgeting, but I also have an assignments tab. So when I'm in budgeting, this is really for the budget manager or somebody who's going to design a budget template, but you'll notice it looks just like reports, right? I have all of my categories. I can go search the stuff that I want, and I could open up a budget template very easily from here. So if I were to open up this budget template, what this is really about explaining how BI360 budgeting works for everyone is that different than Excel, right? If you passed out an Excel budget to 50 different people, you'd have to consolidate. Either you've got multiple tabs and you have to try to block certain people from accessing other tabs, or you'd send out 50 different, Excel spreadsheets you'd have to consolidate later. It doesn't at all work like that in BI360. The design is the same, but I could send out one template to 50 different people and they're all contributing to the area that's specific to them. So in this scenario, right, I'm contributing to the US, Department 100, this period, this budget version, and this forecast version, because there's a forecast over here as well. So if, and I can build the budget templates however I want them to look. So if I had multiple budget let's say multiple departments, excuse me, I could always go in and I could select and say, hey, I completed my budget for 100, show me 200, right? Or in this scenario, I'm the budget manager, I could come in and edit, right? I could edit somebody's department, they've contributed, I could go across all departments. So this is the advanced level of the design and budget management, but I'll show you that same exact template for what everybody really wants to see. So I've obviously got a lot of workflows, do a lot of demos, but I'll open up, you're probably only gonna have one, so let's open up one workflow assignment. And here you can see I have one new template. This is for Mike Kimbrough. I have one new template. I have two that I've already started that are in progress. I have three that I need to approve because I also approve budgets as well. And then I've got one that I've completed, submitted and completed, right? So this is that exact same budget template. So if I open it up, and we'll try to make this really easy. I can't change any of these parameters. When you did the workflow, let's say I had the ability to change, you could say I have two departments, you could have changed my ability to either given me two different templates or given me the ability to change the departments to 100 to 200. So I could finish 100, I could finish that assignment, go into 200 and do exactly the same thing, right? Same template, contributing to two different places. So if you don't want your users to see any of this, no problem, you can just remove it, it's optional. Or like I do, you could just expand it to a full screen. So if I go into full screen to enter in my budget, I could just go in here and say, okay, so I'm a contributor now, so I'm doing conference and seminars, right? So I'm gonna drag that across the year, and I did my budget at the account level, I'm done. Or I could say, well, we're not quite that easy, right? So let me spread that number. And what I have now is you can see the account line. So I've split the screen. I have the main line down here, and now I have all these spreading options. So I could say, you know what? I don't want this to be 48,000. I want this to be 64,000, and I'd like to spread it evenly. There's a number of different spreading methods that you can select from, and they're very easy to create on the fly. But I'm going to go ahead and just spread it 64. So boom, there's my 64,000. And then you'll also see up here that it spread that 64,000 evenly as well. Or I could say, I'd like to adjust this based on prior year's actuals. I'm going to use 2019, my demo data. And I'm going to do this, increase this by 15%. I could use units if I was doing that as well. And I can also offset this. So I just offset this 2 periods. So you can see that it moved over 2 periods. And I could just say adjust. And then you see that I've taken last year's budget, 2019, and increased that by 15%. And of course, I can comment on everything that's here, including line item detail. You didn't see any line item detail, and I'll show you where that is. You see how we have the little red flags here that automatically pop up. So if I were to go into this and say, let's spread that, you'll notice if I scroll down that I have line item detail now. As soon as I enter in here and I say vendor 2, or what is it, vendor, I guess 13. I don't know why they started that. That's probably a typo. Let's just say vendor 3. As soon as I select this cell, you notice that that spreading popped up and it said, hey, do you want to continue spreading the way you did last time? And I can either ignore that and enter an amount and continue on, or I could use, you know, different spreading method however I wanted to. I can also add comments at the line item detail. So all of that is immediately available for reporting. As soon as I say finish my assignment, or I save that data, it's going back to the data warehouse. It's immediately available for reporting. Okay. Comments throughout, right? It's all about how you're going to design the template. So I have comments here, so I can put comments at the line level. I could put comments at the line item detail level. I could put comments really anywhere within the system. If you see I've got an activity log, I can enter in new comments here. This could be for the person that's going to approve my budget, right? Very easy to add comments throughout the system, okay? And then I can go, you know, I can either save my assignment, store my assignment, and come back to it later, or I could finish my assignment and it would submit that over. And really, again, if I went back into budgeting, you'll see that really any kind of budget template, whether you want to do bottom up, top down, you know, advanced payroll templates, anything that you want to be able to use from a budgeting perspective, that's completely available inside of BI360. Last but not least, here you notice that I don't have multiple tabs. I could add multiple tabs, but why? Because I'm contributing to all the different areas that I want. Generally, the only time you're going to see multiple tabs is if I have, these are demo instructions, but these could easily be policies, procedures, step-by-step instructions for your users, and makes it very, very easy for them to be able to contribute to a budget, right? So again, you can remove all these parameters. All they have to do is say input into the yellow area, and that's that. You'll also notice if I scroll over to the right that I have actuals. Obviously, they can't change any of that data. That's why it's in blue. And I can also put in other budget templates. Like this is a salary template or payroll template that I wanted to include in this budget template, but it's pulling this data from another template. It can't be changed. And then, of course, indicators. If I wanted to also put a graph into here to say how am I trending, you know, whatever I really want to do, that design capability is really up to me. Okay. So very easy to work with inside of the BI360 budgeting. Probably the last thing I'll show you from a budgeting side, I'm not going to save that data, is that we also have the ability to do assumptions. So if you have lots of templates that you would like to be able to drive, so here you can see an example of an assumption or a driver template. It's kind of a funny one because I've got a lot of different things in one template. So I've got payroll taxes, I've got benefits, and typically HR type stuff. I've got CapEx, my asset life, project stuff days per month, and then some travel stuff. But the good news is if you want to put it all in one template, you can, or you can create an unlimited number of driver templates. So imagine if you were, in this case, updating your Medicare. I know that is very US based, but I know that Australia has Medicare. If I make this adjustment here as the HR person, I know that this is a global driver. It will immediately change all of my templates. This can go on with things like products or product categories where you want to do increases without going into the templates. You could say increase it by 2%, increase it by $1, what have you. I can drive an individual template, a group of templates, or it can be a global driver. So a lot that you can do with inside of the BI360 budgeting tool. So last piece of this, workflow, very easy to create new workflows. If you've worked within BI3 or worked within a budgeting tool before, sometimes this is a difficult part. Very easy in BI360. I can say, here's my my workflow, right? I can go and decide who's going to be reviewing this. I can select my users, who's going to be approving this, right? And then I can go in and I can select templates. So I can say, show me the APAC personnel. I'd also like the CapEx APAC and the other expenses APAC. Okay, then I can select my users. So once I select my users in here, right, very easy to do. I can also, once I've selected that for all, I can go back and say, you know what, I don't want them to have that personnel one, and then I can also edit by the user. So I could go in here, it's defaulted or they've inherited this information. I could go in here and say, no, I don't want that. I want to change the entity that they work with, or I want to let the user decide because they might have access to 2 entities, right? That's all controlled by the security on the back end. So once you've created your workflow, I'm not going to save that. I will just go into one that's finished. And I know I'm talking fast because we're running out of time because of the delay. If I select this and I want to see the status of my workflow, this is the same workflow that I was in earlier when I opened up the template. So I clicked a little quickly there. I'm at rushing. So what you can see now is this is I can filter my status by or I can filter by my status or the individual templates if one template is more important than another, or I could filter by the user. So if I filtered by myself, you could see that I have one that, remember when I went into my assignment, I had one that wasn't started, 2 that I was working on. I was working on that expense template, 3 that are awaiting approval that I need to approve, and then I have 1 that's been completed. So complete workflow within the system as well. So last thing here would be the Power BI. So I went into my data warehouse. So you can see that the data warehouse is made up of modules and then dimensions and then attributes assigned to that, right? So our data warehouse should not be intimidating to anyone. We're going to set it up once. MicroChannel will set it up for you once, and then it's all about just refreshing that data in whatever frequency. But very easy to work within this environment. So if I go into configuration, you'll see that I have the API here. What I've done is I've enabled this API and I've said, show these modules that are highlighted. Now that data becomes available from within my data warehouse for my external dashboard tool, right? And all I'm doing is when I'm going into Power BI is I'm actually copying these tokens and pasting them inside of Power BI. But within standard Power BI, I will show you an example. This is a dashboard that is, and I'll full screen this. This dashboard that you see here is standard Power BI using the BI360 data, including budget contribution data. This dashboard is using the exact same data as that first P&L that I showed you. I didn't scroll down to the bottom, but you would have seen full-time employees and revenue per head count, and I think there was also revenue per square footage in there as well. But this is a visual view of that same exact data. So I've got multiple companies and I've got all the different data. One was a formatted financial report and the other is a modern looking dashboard. So really you can create any type of dashboard for your users using standard Power BI functionality and all of the data across your organization that is stored within inside of BI360.